G'day folks and welcome. My name's Chris Nitzo. This is an Oz Cyclone Chasers state update. This is the first one that we're issuing. This is for the Northern Territory. Firstly, I'd like to tell you some of the basic reasons why we've moved on to a state-by-state updates, as well as just a general quick public update. So the general quick public update will allow you to know well in advance of a cyclone threat and allow you to generally have an idea of where it's going, as well as how intense it might be and that sort of thing. These updates here are a little bit more specific and geared more towards people that require a little bit more weather information. So they're going to be issued 3 times a week between November to April during quiet periods of the wet season. Now, once the season gets really active and we've got cyclones around, for that particular state, they're going to be issued every day during an active cyclone period. Going to be issued once a week from July until November, so during the dry season, once a week, just to let you know how things are going. Obviously, they're going to be quite short because there's not too much weather that goes on between July and November. Will normally go for between 5 and 20 minutes. So 5 minutes when during the dry season or during times of the wet season when we're in monsoon break conditions. Going to be pretty short video. Sometimes I'll go up to 20 minutes and possibly even longer, depending on how many cyclones. Sometimes there's 2 cyclones affecting the same state, so we'll have to talk about both. Normally they'll look ahead for about 7 days, and once a week, usually on a Friday, we're going to look ahead to cyclone potential for the next month, which obviously we're not going to do today because of the simple fact that there will be no cyclone potential for the next month after this particular depression is gone. Why do we do it? Because it allows a more localized focus, allows for better decision making, and allows us to target specific prone areas of severe weather. And compared to those short updates, we give you a little bit more depth and focus on what's happening. We give you more probability-based guidance. Now, this is pretty important because it's all well and good for us to show you what a couple of models are showing the system doing, but if the overall ensemble is suggesting something completely different, then the public updates are going to be very, very wrong, and these updates will be a lot closer to the mark. So that's I guess one of the key features here. So if there's one place that's expecting 100 mils according to one model and every other model's tipping 2 mils, then the chances are you're not going to get that 100 mils. And if we were going by the public updates, we would suggest what that model's suggesting, which is 100 mils, whereas in these updates we look a little bit more in depth and say, well, hang on, that's probably not quite right. There's the biggest thing I think that people are going to appreciate is the question and answer period. Following a video update, there's going to be a question and answer period for an hour or two, depending on how active things are, where people can ask questions. Particularly in the Northern Territory, you guys get left out. It's all about Darwin and there's nothing else. So there's a chance here to ask some localized questions about what's happening in the Northern Territory over the next week in your specific location, and then have a look at some model guidance in particular. So I think that one-on-one interaction is going to be something that people will enjoy, that will be only a subscriber benefit. Alright, let's get into the Northern Territory here, and so far we've had quite a decrease in the amount of rainfall over the past 24 hours associated with the tropical low. Now, it was slowly developing yesterday, but it has since stifled its development. And most of the heavier falls have been offshore, so we've got Centre Island here is reported just in your screen there, 59 mils, with North East Island 57, but overall the actual on land places, so mainland places like Gove, more around the 20 to 50 millimeters, and as we head towards Maningrida here, only 2 or 3 millimeters over the past 24 hours. Milingimbi 37. So we've had a little bit of rain in that region, but nowhere near the extent of the rain we had 2 days ago. And if we take a look at that activity in the Gulf, we had 2 little weak lows yesterday. We had one out here and one out here, and we can see really just a fairly jumbling mess of convergence here rather than any distinct low pressure feature on the latest visible imagery here, taken at around about lunchtime today. But you can definitely see that most of the activity is focused on the Northern Territory side of the Gulf of Carpentaria as opposed to the Queensland side. We take a look further to the west, we can see that we have a fairly clear demarcation line of some drier air here, and we get some moister air a little bit further to the east. So we do see some showers and continuing rainfall along the northeastern top end, yet we see some drier conditions on the western top end, some Q developing also through inland districts. You can see here on the latest microwave imagery, it's very difficult to make out any type of low-level circulation centre there. it just looks like a fairly heavy convergent mass here to the northeast of where the low would be. And even on the satellite-derived wind estimates, we can see that they've dropped down to about 15 knots now. Yesterday they were getting up to 20 to 25 knots. So the system has weakened over the past 24 hours, no doubt about that. And look, it doesn't look healthy at all in terms of a low-level circulation center. However, in saying that, all global models continue to keep it as a feature over the next few days. So currently you can see that the GFS model initializing the low pressure system a little bit probably too far to the south, but regardless, it is keeping it a feature, pushing it in an easterly direction for another day before starting to push it back out here to the west or west-northwest, just off the northern top-end coastline on the 28th, 29th and 30th, getting out towards East Timor, and then suddenly pushing in a more southerly direction in response to a upper-level trough. Now the UK Met tends to struggle a bit more with the system, pushes it in an easterly direction for another day or so, and then basically hits the coast around about Maningrida and pushes just inland of the Northern Territory coastline, but so weak it's almost indiscernible. And so by the end of the time frame at the 28th of April, the system lies out here in the Timor Sea, but once again almost indiscernible in terms of its structure or impact. Then after that, the UK Met model pushes the system west towards East Timor and doesn't significantly develop it all the way through to the end of our cyclone season. Look, folks, no matter what model you actually look at, they're all suggesting a very similar thing now. They've really ditched the idea of this developing into anything more significant than a weak low along its track westwards. However, just be aware that even as a weak low, as it tracks westwards, and if it remains a little closer, which is what the guidance is now doing, is it's pushing it a little closer to the top-end coastline. If that happens, you will see an increase in rainfall. Even in the more populated areas around Darwin, you'll see an increase in rainfall, and at the very least, you'll see a little bit of moisture advection, so you might see an increase in shower and storm activity in the region. So if we look at the European model a little bit more detail and look particularly at the what's expected in terms of the coastal waters, we can see that fairly moderate northeasterly flow pushing into the northeastern parts of the Arnhem Land here, and then as we track the system through to 48 hours, it almost loses all semblance of being a tropical low. It actually forms or washes out into a trough system. Then as we head towards the 72-hour mark, it sort of reforms itself out here to the northwest of the Tiwi Islands. Now, I guess the big thing with that is that as that trough system or weak low just tracks across that particular region of coastline, you will see just the potential increase in just some shower and storm activity on there as we head towards Sunday particularly rather than Saturday. So that's Sunday morning 4 a.m. we can see here some fairly moderate falls of rain developing. Sunday morning 10 a.m. everything eases off, but then by Sunday afternoon we start to see some more shower and storm activity developing around the top end coast, and then as we head to Saturday night we see more of that activity around the northwestern top end, and then as we head to that was Sunday night, I meant, not Saturday night. As we head to Monday morning at 4 a.m, we see some of that activity here just off the western top end coast. Now, if that low tracks a little bit further to the south, don't be surprised if Darwin does cop a little bit of rain from it, which will be a welcome and possibly final bout of rain for that region. But a lot does depend on the actual trajectory of that low. So if that low doesn't track anywhere near the northwestern top end, then most of that moisture will remain well offshore. So in the wake of that low pushing way out here towards Timor, then we're left with an easterly flow, about a moderate easterly flow, tending light over inland districts, and not exactly moist either. So we're really starting to get into dry season type conditions here. Not much moisture in this sort of flow here across the territory. Then as we head to next Friday, we really are now devoid of moisture across most of the top end, so even isolated convective showers will be an issue as we head to late in the week. If we look a little further afield in the modelling as we head towards Saturday and Saturday night, we're continuing to see a southeasterly stream really pushing in dry air. So folks, really the dry season is right on cue for most of the Northern Territory, as it is for Queensland. The good news, coastal waters should be reasonably calm for most of the territory, except for this northeastern region where we will see 15 to 20 knot winds fairly generally throughout the next week or so. And that's pretty common as well, I'd imagine, at this time of year for you guys. But with now the models ditching the idea or the prospect of this low developing significantly in Northern Territory waters, we're not going to see a freshening or fresh to strong winds associated with the low at any stage across Northern Territory coastal waters. One of the key features to note here is the equatorial Rossby wave that's currently pushing through. What we've got is we've got a fairly benign phase of it coming now, where we're going to see an increase in outgoing long wave radiation, which suggests drier than normal conditions through the low to mid levels of the atmosphere. And so this low, located right over the territory over the next few days, is really going to struggle and come up against some fairly dry air, and therefore it's not expected to intensify significantly. And if we look at that dry air on model guidance, and sorry, if we continue this Rossby wave, looking at this Rossby wave as we head through, we see that it pushes basically just right over the top of where the low is going to lie over the next 7 days or so. So unfortunately, things are conspiring, or fortunately, things are conspiring against this low to develop. So if we look at mid-level moisture rates here right now, we've got by tomorrow morning, we've got really dry conditions right in where this low is trying to develop. So it really has very little chance of doing anything significant. And then as we head towards Saturday night, I've got to get my Saturdays and Sundays right. We have a continuation of this dry air. There is some moist air trying to advect in from the east, and remembering that that's why Saturday night, Sunday, there's likely to be an increase in shower potential here across or shower and storm potential across the northern parts of the territory as the low pushes west. But it's really battling some very dry air in the Timor Sea and East Timor as it tracks westwards here on the Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday. Look, this dry air is really starting to wrap in around it. It's pretty typical now of early dry season conditions, and unless the system can tap into a feed of moisture coming from the north, which is unlikely to happen, remembering the coincidental track to the west at the same time as that phase of the Rossby wave is pushing west as well, we're not likely to see some moist air advecting into the actual circulation, at least for the next 7 days or so. If it remains active after 7 days as it pushes west into into around East Timor and further to the west, maybe Christmas and Cocos Islands might need to just be on the lookout for it as it heads west towards them. So overall, a look at the model forecast for rainfall today. We continue to see some moderate falls, but once again, most likely to be located just offshore. As we head to Saturday, we're going to see a spread of that moisture westward, so isolated showers and storms developing all the way through to even south of Darwin. But we're going to see a continuation of a moist northeasterly flow here in the northeastern top end. And then as we head to Sunday, we'll continue to see that moisture pushing westwards across the top end of the territory. Once again, this is likely to be the last real sign of a dying wet season for the Northern Territory before the dry kicks in. Then we've got Monday, where we do see the potential there for some moderate falls, even pushing as far south as Darwin just. Overall, though, most of the guidance suggesting that rainfall remains offshore. But we will see showers and storms developing in this entire part of the Northern Territory. Through the eastern parts of the territory, we're going to see a continuation of that easterly flow at 15 to 20 knots, driving in some fairly decent shower activity. As we head to Tuesday, then things start to dry out. Even for the eastern top end, things start to dry out, and certainly for the rest of the territory, things start to become more isolated. And as we head further afield, we really do only see some very isolated activity remaining around the northern top end. We also see the development of a trough system in through southern parts of the Northern Territory, so possibly a development of some isolated shower or storm activity, or maybe even some cloudy and drizzly or virga type rainfall for the southern parts of the NT. So folks, that's our NT update for this week. Our next NT update and our final one for April will be on the 30th of April, Wednesday the 30th of April. We hope you can join us then. Remembering that as of next year, there'll be a Q&A session after this, once this is up, where you can ask some questions. Alright, thanks for watching.